We have to find a way to talk and have dialogue and be tolerant between other views.
You have to have open dialogue, and that's where free speech is so important.
Consent's a very important thing, and today in the Me Too movement, it's been very important because I think it's really opened up a lot of eyes.
Cannabis is a healing herb. We as the people, we need to stand up and make a move.
If you committed sexual assault, it doesn't matter when it was, you should be held accountable for that. However, we have to make sure that we actually make sure they committed sexual assault, and we have to make sure that all allegations are verified.
So put in these programs thinking that it'll help everyone, but what they forget is that the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions.
And I think that's what this whole movement is all about anyways, is trying to be open to ideas.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Liberty Talks podcast. This is Matt Travis, and I'm here with John Douglas, as always. Today, we're going to be talking about the ISIS and the califate and how it's been destroyed, as well as we're going to be talking about the shooting in New Zealand and the left's reaction, as well as the New Zealand government's reaction and the plans that they have going forward. I know that John Douglas has just went and read through a Daily Wire article on the califate and how it's been destroyed. So go ahead and what did that say, John?
Yeah, so the Daily Wire article says, headline, breaking, last ISIS stronghold liberated, caliphate destroyed, report says. So basically, it doesn't mean ISIS is gone, but the caliphate is gone now. It's pretty much destroyed. The only place ISIS exists is pretty much on the internet and out there in far reaches away from Syria and Iraq, which is what ISIS is supposed to be in the first place. So it's actually really good news because this has been a long time coming. And I think Trump does deserve a lot of credit for this because he really decentralized this the bureaucracy that led to decision-making ISIS. Under Obama, everything about ISIS had to go through him, and what Trump did was he delegated down to his generals and to the military, let them decide what was best. And he changed the rules of engagement. There's small things like that which helped lead to their decline. And he actually posted a picture on Twitter earlier about it just showed two different maps, a map of how much territory ISIS controlled the day he went into office and then how much they control now. And the first picture shows a bunch of red just covering Iraq and Syria. And that was all the territory that ISIS controlled. Now they've just been delegated to a tiny little spot, which apparently has been destroyed. And so the report also said that we will be leaving troops in Iraq and Syria, which is a good thing because we need to do that. It was Obama pulling out of Iraq in the first place, which caused the power vacuum to unfold and ISIS to take over. So it's really good news, and I think Trump should be commended for it.
Yeah, and that's happening, right? We're seeing that all over liberal media outlets.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because they always talk about the important stuff.
Because we talk about whenever he's going to end the world with his talks with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. I mean Jim. Oh my gosh, can't talk. But anyway, but
Kim Jong-un.
We definitely at the same time would give him credit if ISIS was defeated under his administration, right?
Yeah. So this is a spectacular achievement, and we're really the other thing about ISIS is I'll give a little history of ISIS real quick because I actually have studied it a little. ISIS is really interesting because before ISIS, the big bad guy was Al-Qaeda, run by Osama bin Laden. Now, the thing is that Al-Qaeda's goal was to just get the West out of the Middle East. They thought that it was blasphemy that there was Western soldiers anywhere near Saudi Arabia. That was kind of the overarching issue. However, Osama bin Laden did not actually believe in the ideas of a worldwide caliphate and conquering everything. And as surprising as that is, he considered that too radical. So what ISIS was, so after Al-Qaeda fell, what ISIS was the idea that you create the newest caliphate that was stretch between Iraq and Syria. And that's really important because that idea was considered very radical, even radical for a lot of the original terrorists in Al-Qaeda. So this is why it's really important that ISIS has been defeated because it was a symbol. I could be wrong on this, but I believe that in the Quran, there sort of like revelations in the Bible, the Quran believes the world will end after, I think, these 7 caliphates. I could be wrong on that, but after a certain amount of caliphates. And that's what made ISIS so dangerous because they claim to be the next caliphate.
Yeah, people don't realize there's a lot of disagreement between different sects of Islam as far as how it's kind of like in Christianity how you have different denominations and whatnot. It's kind of similar.
Right,
Not
exactly.
exactly, but but it's kind of similar to that.
Well, the sects in Islam, everyone knows about the main divide, the Sunni Shia divide, but there are different divides too, like the Abadi. But the fact that ISIS is gone now is a major achievement, and hopefully we can see more peace throughout the Middle East. So I am skeptical of that. I do think that there is going to be a showdown between Iran and Saudi Arabia eventually, unless the people of Iran overthrow the Ayatollah, in which case that would be awesome. And we may see a showdown between, obviously, Israel and the Gaza Strip might be coming, and also Israel and Lebanon. I can see that happening too. And possibly Syria, but a lot less likely. But Hezbollah has been getting very active in Lebanon, which is securing Israel. So we haven't seen the end of conflict in the Middle East, but it's definitely a much better place now that ISIS is gone.
Oh yeah, yep, definitely. But yeah, I mean that's kind of just recent news, so we don't know a whole lot beyond what John just said there. But so we can probably go ahead and jump into our second topic here, which is New Zealand. As pretty much everybody knows, on I think it was March 15th, they had a shooting in New Zealand with what the media spread as a far right guy, but if you look at his manifesto, it's not exactly an accurate depiction. He was an eco extremist. He was kind of just a guy that was a disgruntled crazy person, I guess you'd have to say, for the most part. But yeah,
I mean, I think it'd be fair to call him a white supremacist. His manifesto definitely talked about that. And by the way, on Liberty Talks, we do not give out names of these people. We do not release that information. We do not release manifesto because science does show that these people do become martyrs for other crazy people who want to kill a bunch of people. But we will talk about the manifesto a little bit because the media is forcing us to talk about it.
Yeah. And exactly, that's it. You're forcing us to talk about it. And that's one of the things, I think one of the big pushers of people not talking about these things right after they happen in the way that the left and the right have was Tim Pool. I remember he did some he did some videos on the fact that we should all not comment after these things happen because there's no comments that cannot be taken as partisan, and he creates this divide, and it's the exact divide that this guy who shot these people was trying to cause. He actually said that in his manifesto that he wanted more gun laws to be made, and he wanted there to be more division and whatnot, so that he thought that justified the ends of whatever he was trying to accomplish. And but that's one of the things that I disagree with him on, that we just kind of mentioned, is that you do have to respond. Whenever the left starts making absurd statements about these shootings and stuff, you do have to respond. You can't just let them go on and right. give inaccurate accounts of what happens and what will fix the problem. And one of those things is that won't fix the problem is that New Zealand is now going to have even more strict gun control than they had before. They're going to pretty much ban all semi-automatic weapons entirely.
Which, by the way, for people who don't know guns, a semi-automatic just means you pull the trigger and it fires once. And then you pull the trigger and it fires again. That's a semi-automatic gun. So whenever Democrats in America talk about banning all semi-automatic weapons because they don't know what they are and they think they call them military grade because they look scary, all a semi-automatic weapon is pretty much every single gun in the U.S. The only guns that will be available after that will be shotguns and bolt-action rifles, which are not that popular. Anyway, so when the left does say they want to ban semi-automatic weapons, it is the overwhelming majority of all guns in America.
And even rifles. Like people tend to get more scared of the word semi-automatic rifle than they do semi-automatic guns even. But even the rifles, like that's including, my dad has a 1942. This was a gun that would have been used in World War II, a 1942 M1 carbine that same thing. You pull the trigger once, it shoots one bullet. It shoots at 300 caliber or 30 caliber or 300 caliber. I can't remember, but it's basically the same size. Actually, it's bigger than an AR-15 round. It's actually closer to a 308 round, which would be an AR-10. So this is a 1942 rifle that would have been used in World War II, and there were similar rifles that were used in World War I. They were essentially the same thing. They're just as powerful. They shoot just as fast.
Even the handgun that was used in World War One and World War Two and Vietnam and the Korean War.
Yeah.
But it was all the 1911, which, spoiler alert, the gun was made in 1911. That gun would be banned because it's a semi-automatic. Every single handgun in the country would be banned under that.
Yeah. And in some of these, even in some of these bans, these supposedly semi-automatic bans, even some revolvers would be banned under them because they go after the capacity limits. So if you have a revolver that can hold 6 rounds, 6 shots in a revolver, and they do some sort of like 5-round ban, then your revolver would be entirely illegal, or it could be argued that it would be illegal under some of these laws.
Yeah, definitely. And there is this thing I want to push back that I hear a lot, and I don't hear much pushback. The left always says that we should not have military-grade weapons in our society. I don't know what that means. The Second Amendment says that everyone has the right to bear arms. When there's a reason the founders did not write in except military-grade weapons, because every weapon that everyone had back then when the founders wrote were military-grade weapons. Yeah. The muskets they used were military-grade, and the other argument I hear is, well, they didn't know there would be machine guns, semi-automatic weapons, which automatic weapons are illegal anyways. But they actually did know that because the first automatic weapon was made in 1715. It was called the Puckle gun. And the founding fathers loved it. They even wanted to see if they could get it in the Continental Army, but it was too expensive. So yes, they did know about automatic weapons back in 1776 too, or more so 1787 or 89 when they wrote the Bill of Rights. They did know that these guns existed and would exist and would get better. And they believed that the common people, needed the Second Amendment, and they needed military-grade weapons to defend themselves, because the point of the Second Amendment is to stop the government from infringing on the rights of its citizens. What the great equalizer is a gun. There is no greater equalizer than having the same force that the government can use against you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And even, if I remember right, I think it was Jefferson, but I could be wrong, that wrote a letter to someone in Congress once that was asking about, oh my gosh, can't think of the name of them now. The cannons.
Yeah, the cannon.
Yeah. He was asking about cannons. Would that have been considered an arm in the Second Amendment? And they were like, of course it would. Of course it would be considered an arm. So it's absurd to say that the firearms that we have now today that are less powerful than cannons and that shoot just as fast, or roughly as fast as the Puckle gun, they would not have considered to be protected on the Second Amendment. And then on top of that, I saw an argument from somebody tweeted out, who was it? Scarborough. I think it was Scarborough.
Joe Scarborough.
Yeah, Joe Scarborough. He tweeted out something the other day about how the AR-15 was actually a replacement for the M16, if I remember right. I want to say in Vietnam, or it wasn't a replacement for, but they were talking about replacing it with the M16. Like the guy who created it to be a replacement for the M16. And that after the war, they actually said that the M16 cost more lives because the AR-15 would have been more effective. That's an absurd statement. But whenever I hear that, it just makes me go, okay, if you're right, that just convinces me that we shouldn't ban fully automatic rifles. like congratulations, you haven't convinced me to ban ARs. You've just convinced me that, we should allow fully automatic M16s.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about people that usually make arguments against the Second Amendment. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about guns. Usually they never even shot a gun before. They think a semi-automatic weapon is usually an automatic weapon. And the reason they call it military grade is because they look scary. That's really the reason. So it's really frustrating talking to people about this because they don't ever know what they're talking about. Here's what I recommend for people. If you've never shot a gun before, you can be against the Second Amendment. You can have your opinions. That's fine. At least go shoot a gun so you have some experience. You know what you're talking about. I've taken a lot of people to shoot guns, especially people from Europe and who've never even seen a gun in their life. Every time they go shoot a gun, they have a newfound respect for it. Yeah,
exactly. It's probably, I would say this and the abortion issue are two, well, I don't know. I think I feel comfortable saying this. This and the abortion issue are the two issues that people are the least informed on the left, that they just have no idea what they're talking about. It doesn't matter if you're talking about what prevents gun violence versus, or what prevents abortion, or what is occurring when an abortion happens, what is inside the womb, or what is how does a rifle operate? I mean, how does a gun operate, and what does semi-automatic mean, and how much powerful is it, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Any aspect of either one of those issues, the left is extremely ignorant on. And what's ironic is that they are the most arrogant about both of those issues compared to pretty much any other issue.
No, it's exactly right. And it's amazing because they usually talk about the gun buyback in Australia. That's what New Zealand's doing now, is a gun buyback. It's not going to work. No gun buyback ever works. When Australia did a gun buyback in the 90s, they only got a third of all the guns in Australia back to them.
Yeah.
So it's not going to work in the first place. But here's the thing. The people on the left usually look towards that and say, well, look, after the gun buyback, violent crimes went down. Well, here's the thing, though. Violent crimes was going down before the gun buyback anyways. And the U.S., which has never had a gun buyback at the same time, the amount of arms increased by about over 50% in the U.S. They rapidly started increasing around that time. And the violent crime in the U.S. was actually going down faster than Australia after the gun buyback.
Yeah, exactly. There was a CNN article that I was reading before we got on here, and I was trying to find the part. They talked about, and like, their arguments before they make them. They talked about the Australian gun buyback and how there was I'm trying to remember what they said here. An estimated 2.1s in circulation. Let's see if I can find this real quick. But anyway, they talked about, you just talked about the Australian gun buyback and how it was a success and how it reduced suicide by like 5% and reduced gun homicides. They always say gun homicides because they don't want to look at the actual homicide statistics. It's a little bit different story when it comes to, you look at homicides overall since then compared to how much it reduced in other countries and whatnot. But yeah, they talk about how gun homicides went down a certain amount over a period of time. So you already know the argument's gonna make. And it makes me wonder that, just like the abortion issue, I was hesitant to say that they're ignorant on both of these issues, that they're the most ignorant, because it makes me wonder if they're not really ignorant on these two issues. If when it comes to guns and abortion, really they're not ignorant. They know exactly what the truth is, and they just don't care to acknowledge it.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And the other thing that you should say about Australia is that after the gun buyback, there was no mass murders. There's never been a mass shooting ever since the gun buyback. The problem with that, though, is that on average, Australia doesn't have mass shootings. I think in 20 years before the gun buyback, there was only like one mass shooting or like 1 to 3 mass shootings every 20 years. So it's been 20 years since the original first gun buyback. So that's not even enough data to even tell. There's no relevant data there because the crime rate in Australia is already extremely low. And here's the thing about New Zealand, where they're doing the new gun buyback, which isn't going to fail. They're saying that if after this gun buyback, if you have a gun, you will be a felon, you will be an illegal person. So what they're essentially saying is that because a white supremacist went and shot up a bunch of Muslims, if you don't turn in your guns, then you're going to become a criminal because of him, which is just evil in itself, especially when I think in 2015, there was only about 32 murders in New Zealand. So like there's hundreds of thousands of people in New Zealand, over 1 million guns, and there was only like 32 murders. So no, gun violence is not a problem in New Zealand, and pretending it is and taking everyone's gun away isn't going to make the problem any better. It's only going to make it worse. And we're going to see this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, so I was pulling up some of the New Zealand gun laws here that are already on the books. So grounds to carry or use guns. Under New Zealand's law, some lawful, proper, and sufficient purpose is needed. Some lawful, proper, and sufficient purpose is needed in order to use, discharge, or carry a firearm, air gun, or similar weapon. I wonder what a similar weapon would be besides a firearm or an air gun. I'm talking about like bows and stuff. But anyway, but
a sword gun.
What essentially this amounts to is you have to get a license to buy a gun. It would be similar, not the same, because I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it would be similar to the process that it is here to get like a silencer or to get a fully automatic weapon. That you would actually have to have approval from the state and have to go through a process to get a license in order to do it. And that process would involve background checks and checking the people that live with you and are around you and checking to make sure you're not a crazy person. Somehow this guy got through, which just shows the incompetence of government probably. But yeah, there's already laws in place. So to pretend like banning the guns is, first of all, to pretend like banning the guns is going to make the crazy guy that wants to kill a bunch of people not figure out a way to get a gun illegally. It's kind of absurd. But also, they already have these laws in place. further laws probably aren't going to help with this this specific type of situation, at least.
And that's the thing. This is only a punishment on the law-abiding citizen. This white supremacist shooter had a gun license. He passed every single test. He had all the gun license New Zealand had, and it didn't work. It didn't stop it. So that doesn't mean that you just take away guns from everyone, because now all you're doing is making the law-abiding citizen, you're punishing the law-abiding citizen and making it harder for him to defend himself. Yeah. Well, I mean, would more laws have made this guy not shoot up this mosque?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious it wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. And to show how strict they are, if you go further down this page, it says, in the arms code, police advise that self-defense is not a valid reason to possess a firearm. So you could have like a legitimate like self-defense claim, like I have a stalker, assumedly, I would assume, but since self-defense is not a valid claim, you couldn't go to them and be like, look, I need a firearm because somebody's trying to kill me. I need it for self-defense.
Or, if a white supremacist wants to shoot up a mosque, I guess that's not a good enough claim anymore.
Yeah. Oh man, he's crazy.
But here's the thing. This white supremacist in his manifesto said the reason he's doing this is because he wants to divide people in the United States, and he wants to create a debate on guns that's meant to divide people. He said he hates conservatism because he does not think it is sufficiently conserve the white ethno-state, which is stupid because that's not what conservatism is. He said that conservatism has allowed individuality and actual human rights to go forward, which is what conservatism is supposed to conserve. So I don't see what he's complaining about, because that's the point of conservatism.
Yeah.
This guy said he's not a fan of conservatives, but he did express admiration for Trump and Candace Owens only because he knew that it would lead to attacks on Trump and Candace Owens. And so when the media goes and attacks these people and says that Republicans are responsible for this, because that's what they're going to say now. They're going to say, if you don't agree with our policy preferences, you're responsible for this, and you think it's all right that these people were murdered. That's the next step, and that's where it's going to go. Now, whenever the media do this, they are playing right into this hands, and they are doing exactly what this white supremacist and mass murderer want. But since they have a narrative to push, they don't care, because their narrative is the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen plenty of American politicians too pushing this. I think AOC tweeted out very quickly after something about thoughts and prayers aren't going to help or something like that. We're real smarter. See, she knows her line. She just don't know when to use them. Thoughts and prayers. What good are your thoughts and prayers? Yeah, say that to the mosque that just got shut up by people that are in there praying, and tell them what good are your thoughts and prayers. Yeah, so I'm not going to say these people don't care, but I will say that their policy preferences and their narrative is the first thing that they go to and the biggest thing they care about. But with that, this is going to be a small episode of Liberty Talks. So thank you so much for listening. I'm John. That was Matt Travis, and we'll be back here next week.